Have you ever thought about how many people you know in your life? I'm not just talking about your friends and family and such. The people you know. Actors, YouTubers, singers, politicians, sports players. Pretty sure you can remember all their names, or at least the ones that you care about. Names. They are kind of crazy when you think about it. Human mind's a weird thing. We need to have an identity for something when we don't know what it is. For anything, really. Your mind wants to put a name to something so you can claim it as known. It's like part of lizard brain stuff. People name their pets, their cars, their tools. Sometimes, even finding new discoveries, they'll name it after themselves. But namely, sorry for the pun, people name other people. Sure, you could have a nickname, a gamer tag, a bully could call you something that hurt your feelings. Hell, morticians have to name unidentified bodies as Jane or John Doe just to give a nameless cadaver, well, a name. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your name, the one when you came into this world you were given. Names are just so interesting. Not one person names themselves. Sure, you can change your name, but it doesn't change who you were at that one point. You call yourself your name, you introduce yourself with it, and you let people know exactly who you are. People sign their names to claim full responsibilities for whatever they've signed for. We remember names in turn. You could probably think of a bunch of people, and when it comes down to it, your mind can be full of people that you just met, and sometimes you just won't remember their names. So let's just get to introductions. Hi, my name's Jim Finnel. What's your name? I guess it's a little rude to randomly ask for people's name on the internet. I just get excited when I meet new people. You get to find out their stories, their experiences, their likes, their dislikes, and maybe even become friends. I suppose I haven't told you any of my stories, so here's a little bit on me. I'm 25, and I spend most of my time playing video games. I like to talk to people on PlayStation, Xbox, or Discord. And I have several good friends that I've met through the years, even though I've never really met them in real life. You see, when I was a kid, I was a pretty big introvert. I didn't enjoy making a lot of friends. Not because I didn't want to, mostly because I was a little bit on the heavy side. And the ugly side. And you know what? It doesn't matter. I guess the best thing I could say was I had a knack for remembering people. I don't really like bragging, but I could memorize every kid in my grade, in my school, all the teachers, all their names on the off chance someone really wanted to talk to me. I guess I just didn't want to be that guy who didn't even know the name of the person I was talking to. Now, I don't fault them for not knowing mine, but I just like seeing their face when you knew who they were. You'd really get to know if they knew you or just played along with what they said, like, "Hey buddy, how's it going? Dude? Guy?" That's just like Mike Rudy. He didn't even want to remember my name until, well, anyway. I guess another interesting pastime I had was while everyone was talking, I listened in on it. I know technically it was eavesdropping, but I guess since I was a kid no one wanted to talk to, I just wanted to be part of it. I didn't want to really be out of the know, whatever that was, but I'd hear conversations in lunch and through the halls, whispers of gossip before class started. I knew each and every person that talked and who they were talking about, though. That and every alleged secret romance or who'd been caught cheating on their test. You know, the problems we had in school. This admittedly sad lifestyle continued for my life until I was about 17. That's when I met my first friend, my best friend. You see, after school, I didn't have anybody's house to go to afterwards, hanging out and doing what kids usually did. So I'd go to my arcade. God, I miss arcades. Anyway, it was getting late one night and just got dark. been working on saving up some money to get a used car. There was one Harry Rodsworth was selling. I guess in hindsight, I shouldn't have been spending my money at an arcade, but I wasn't that far away. I said my goodbyes to Edith Salwa, the lady that ran the arcade, and started walking home. The streetlights had just started turning on, and I was just 3 blocks away from home. It was getting colder in those nights, and they were getting darker earlier, but it didn't really bother me. It was the same routine, nothing new. As I walked, everything was normal, except for the tail I tripped over. At the time, I thought, no way. I thought it was just some garbage laying around. I took a quick look and had a double take. What I tripped over was like blackish green. Was it scaly? Gooey? It was hard to tell because on my quick look back, it slithered back into the alleyway. It didn't really feel hard when I tripped over it. It was like tripping over a garbage bag filled with liquid at the bottom. If it didn't slide out of sight, I would have thought that's what it was. I did contemplate running away and getting home. That'd been a smart choice. Get away from the unknown and get to the safety of my mom. I also toyed with the idea of going down that alley. Nah, there were way too many scary movies that ended badly for that curious cat. So I went with the third option. I took out my phone and turned the flash on. I poked it over the corner of the building and steadied my breathing. Slowly. When I took the picture, that dumb shutter soundbite went off on the phone. I heard a crash from the trash cans and felt really stupid for not turning the sound off. I usually remembered to do that.
What are you doing?
I nearly jumped out of my skin. Someone was behind me. When I turned around, it was Rudy. Nothing. Put the phone back in my jeans. Mike had his backpack shouldered and looked at me oddly.
You from around here, dude?
I tried to hide the fact that I was blushing a little because, Mike wasn't really a popular kid in school. He liked to act like one, though. He'd hang out with them and laugh at their jokes, be part of the in crowd. He was known for instigating some fights a little bit, too. But I guess I was just embarrassed because we'd been in several classes together and I learned a little too much about him. I'm Jim Finnel. We have history together.
Oh yeah, Finnel. Sorry, man, I couldn't really tell. I didn't know you lived around here.
He didn't even care what he was calling me.
What the hell are you doing anyway?
I think I saw something back there. He looked at me with his superior look of confidence and walked into the alley. I thought, fine, he could be the dumb cat. He pulled his phone out and turned on the flashlight. He then began to look around, and all we really saw was the rubbish that was piled by the dumpsters.
You a dumpster diver, Finnel?
It's Finnel. I made sure he didn't really hear me, but he wouldn't have been so keen to make fun of me if he knew the dirt I had on him, which I chose to keep quiet about. No, I'm not kidding. There was something here. It was right here. Mike scoffed and put his phone away and reached his hand out.
All right, then, let's see.
I was wondering if he wanted my wallet, but then I realized he just wanted to see my phone. I guess I hadn't looked at the picture yet either, so I pulled it out and went to the photos. Mike just leaned over and then snatched it out of my hand. I did not like that either.
Well, it looks like you took a trashy picture, Finnel. Nothing to see here, but... Wait a sec.
I looked at his face and noticed his amusement of making fun of me had grown to a little bit worse of a grin. He was scrolling through my pictures. Hey, that's mine. Give it back. You can't just... Okay, now, I know that sounded like a preschool kid wanting a toy back, but, it was my property. He just stiff-armed me and then kept looking through.
What do we have here?
He found my picture collection. It wasn't anything bad, just pictures I'd taken from school. And at home. And around town. And everywhere else. You see, remembering people and their names wasn't just a gift. It was study. How could I remember everyone's names if I didn't have a record with me at all times? Sometimes people don't like their picture taken. So you just gotta be a little discreet. It's easier the longer you do it. I mean, what's the harm in trying to get a couple pictures of people?
You're a little freak, aren't you, Faddle?
What? It's just a few pictures.
Look at these. There's so many. Dave, Tim, Johnny, Tina, Whitney. Do any of these people know you took their pictures?
I didn't know what he was getting at. The pictures I'd taken recently weren't bad or in poor taste. Some of them were a little blurry, but I had to zoom in from really far. Like, they were really far away. And maybe not everyone was looking at me directly in some of them, but I could tell who they were.
You're taking pictures without their permission. What are you, a perv?
The thought appalled me. None of these pictures were lewd in even the smallest sense. I didn't want any of those pictures like that. Just when I was trying to think of what to say to defend myself, Mike's expression went from joyous pity to confusion. And a weird mixture of fear and anger.
Where the hell were you?
What do you mean? I've been here the whole time. He held my phone up and showed me a picture I'd taken a couple weeks ago. The picture was of Mike clearly shooting steroids in the locker room. Now, lots of people knew he was doing it. At least that's what Tim Landry and Tina Bauer were talking about. I just wanted to confirm it. Clearly, Mike didn't like the visual evidence.
What? You think you're clever or something? Trying to get me kicked off the team, huh?
And then shoved me and I hit my head against the brick wall. It didn't knock me out, but it was hard enough to hurt and make me tear up. I don't like confrontations. I don't love being involved in one. So I took the next best option and I curled up in the fetal position and covered my head. Mike apparently took pity on me because he didn't hurt me any further. His pity didn't stop him from smashing my phone on the ground, though.
Listen here, Faddle. This is your fault. Everything that's about to happen, well, let's just say you're not going to like going to school tomorrow.
With that, Mike spat at me, turned heel, and walked out of sight. I didn't know what he meant. What was he going to do? Tell everybody he beat me up? Good story. Strong guy beats up the fat kid. I still got up and wiped the dirt off my shirt. I looked for my phone. It was out of the alleyway under the light of the street lamp. When I picked it up, I noticed the screen was shattered and it wasn't turning on. I still looked down the alley one more time. I shrugged. I pocketed my phone, grabbed my backpack, and made my way home. When I got home, my mom, Sally Finnel, was sitting on the couch.
Hi, honey. Dinner's in the fridge. How was school?
She didn't look at me when she asked. She was really engrossed in a crime show on TV. It was school.
All right. Well, make sure you eat up. Love you.
Mom always made sure I was good and fed. I couldn't complain. I thanked her and kissed her head and walked into the kitchen. After reheating my meatloaf, I went into my room and turned on my computer. Reaching in my pants pocket, I got my broken phone. The poor piece of technology was dead, and we weren't up for an upgrade anytime soon. I did, however, open up the microSD slot and retrieve the card. Good thing Mike wasn't that smart. I popped the SD into my computer reader and dumped all the photos onto my hard drive. Seriously, do you really think I would let my precious research go away like that? The pictures on my phone were for a quick reference. Here. This was my true collection. I'd memorized everyone in town. Past, present, a picture for every name. I told you, I knew how it felt when people just did not know who you were. So, I took it upon myself to make sure no one was ever forgotten. That way they didn't feel like I'd known. I guess the other hassle was I needed a replacement for my currently disabled phone. I opened up my desk drawer and grabbed my old phone from half a year ago. Sure, it wasn't as good as the broken one prior to being broken, but it was better than nothing. I was about to install the freshly cleaned SD card when I remembered the whole reason for my phone being shattered in the first place. That that tail. I went into my picture folder and scanned for the most recent picture. It was dark. But even though there was a flash, all it caught was the dumpster and some random bags littered around. I will say there were two things that caught my eye. Two little blue dots. They were small but brilliantly blue. The thing was, the camera didn't capture anything else besides these blue dots. I zoomed in on the picture, tried making a better quality. I brightened it, inverted the colors. Nothing. Well, I guess I can't say nothing. After I inverted the colors, everything inverted obviously, but there was something interesting. The whole picture inverted to white, but the two dots were still blue. Now, I wasn't into art or anything like that, but that wasn't right. I scratched at the monitor to see if there was anything on the screen, but no. I moved the window of the program, make sure I didn't have any dead pixels. No. There wasn't anything wrong with the screen. It was just the picture. I didn't know what these dots were. They were so bright. My only guess was maybe the flash had picked something up after all. But I just couldn't care. I was so tired from a night of arcade games, along with the fear of a mic beating. I guess I was just exhausted. So I went to sleep. I treated the next day like it was any other. I got up, I went to school, and I walked along the hallway. I started counting the tiles along the way, and normally, though, when I passed other people, I was never noticed. Today, though, the loud roars of the crowd turned into whispers and murmurs. Funny thing was, the conversations picked back up when I passed the groups. After waiting a few minutes, I looked up only to catch a couple of the girls' eyes that were looking at me. They wrinkled their noses in disgust as soon as their eyes met me, though. It wasn't just them, though. It seemed like everywhere I looked, everybody was watching me. And like I was a rotting piece of trash that was sneaking up the room. I didn't understand what was going on. I took a shower that morning. I thought maybe it was my clothes or something. Maybe I missed a zit that I didn't see. I just kept moving till I got to my locker. When I got there, I noticed there was a note sticking out of the side of it. I looked around to see if anybody put it there, but all I saw were the same glances that I was getting all morning. I grabbed the letter and opened it. There was just one word on it. Freak. I kind of just put it in my pocket and then put in my combination. But when I opened the door, a bunch of rotting garbage and trash fell out all over the bottom of my pants and shoes. Gelatinous goo, half-eaten food, ripped up notes and paper, spoiled milk cartons. It had to have been the trash from around their lunchroom. I just kind of stood there, and everybody in the hallway just stared. Some people were laughing, other people held their noses in disgust. Some looked smug like I'd received my just desserts. Pun not intended, but from down the hall I did hear someone yell.
Lunch looks good on you, Finnel.
It was Mike Rudy. He was with his usual gang of jocks, and they were all laughing and fist bumping.
That's exactly what you get for being a freak. A peeping freak that takes pictures of everyone. You know, the whole school knows now. You were always just a tolerance, but now you're a hindrance. Why don't you just drop dead?
I was stunned. All I wanted was to know everybody. Was that really that bad? I had enough. The worst that could have happened to Mike was that he would have just gotten kicked off the team. All I did was take pictures. Was it really enough for him to fill my locker with junk and trash? I took a breath and I held my composure. After I threw all the garbage back in the trash, I grabbed my bag and just started walking back to the exit. I almost made it too. All I had to do was go through all the kids and back down the hall and...
Hello, Jimmy. Where do you think you were heading?
I stopped to turn around to see that there was a school principal, Jose Martinez. Before I could say anything, the principal ushered me to follow him. I took a look outside. I could make it if I ran. In the end, I just followed him back to his office. When we got there, he offered me a chair. I looked at it and just kind of stood there. I'm good.
Is there something wrong?
Not that I can think of. He looked at the chair that he offered me and just sighed. Afterwards, he sat in his own, folded his hands, and locked eyes with me.
You see, Jimmy.
Jim. I corrected him because it's what my mother called me when I was born. And that's what I want to be called by.
Jim, so there's a nasty rumor going around my school. One of the students has expressed a concern to the faculty. They told us that you've been doctoring images and posting them online. Images of the female students in provocative clothing and male students doing illegal activities. We'd like to hear your side of the story before we tell you what this means for you.
I couldn't think. It didn't sound like he wanted me to defend myself. It sounded like he wanted me to confess. Like this rumor someone had told him was almost expected from a kid like me. Are you joking?
Not at all. This is a serious offense, Jim.
Jose, listen.
Mr. Martinez.
The principal's face was beet red. He clearly didn't like his first name. I thought I was just trying to give him the same courtesy he'd shown me. I'm sorry, Mr. Martinez, but you can't believe Mike Rudy.
Mike is an outstanding student. He is helping out where he can. I have seen him in several club activities, and he is on a few sports teams throughout the year. You, on the other hand, have not shown enthusiasm in anything but, well, nothing. I've seen you take pictures, and I know you were kicked out of the photography club, and
I was kicked out of the club because I didn't like taking pictures of anything and everything. Mr. Martinez, you have to understand that the pictures in my phone are to help me remember everyone. I need to remember everyone.
Get a yearbook. It has all the students, faculty, and...
The yearbook is trash. What if someone comes to school halfway and misses a picture day? What if a person leaves? I don't have their pictures or their names or anything. I need my pictures. I have everyone in it. That's when he smiled and looked at me in victory. Like he had all the evidence to a murder.
So you do have everything. And according to the alleged information, the pictures are on your phone. I'm gonna have to confiscate it until we can prove this.
You can't do that. My mom will...
You're gonna give me your phone. And you are now suspended for 3 days until we could sort out the 6th stain you've brought upon my school.
And that was it. I couldn't help it. He wasn't going to listen to me. I reached into my pocket and shakily gave up my phone. Mr. Martinez just snatched it right out of my hand and set it on his desk.
Thank you. Jimmy, you can have a seat in the office until your mother arrives to pick you up.
I walked out of his office and sat in a chair. I wasn't worried about my phone. It was password protected. Plus, the SD card was cleared out last night, so I didn't have to worry about him snooping. But what bothered me was the nice big glass window on the main office. All the students on the outside could see who the latest kid was that got in trouble. I glanced out to see many of them pointing at me from afar. Mike made sure he was front and center. He had a big dumb grin on his face and flipped me the double bird before leaving for the bell. It took my mom about an hour to get to school. She wasn't mad, more concerned for her little baby. Dad died several years ago, so she and I were all we had left. After a meeting with Jose Martinez, she smiled at me and we both left. I'm sorry, Mom.
Oh, sweetie, you have nothing to be sorry for. I'm the one who should be saying sorry. I couldn't get your phone back. They said they needed it for a record or something. I'm pretty sure they need a warrant for something like that.
I didn't know. At the time for me, school faculty was law. They broke up fights, they dished out discipline, and they were in charge of all the kids, so keeping my phone didn't seem out of the question.
You know, maybe you do need a vacation. You've never been in trouble before, and we haven't done anything for a while. This could be some fun for both of us.
My mom, so quick to cuddle me. I'm okay, Mom. I don't want to go anywhere. Well, maybe to the arcade? She just smiled at me and gave me $20.
Alright, go on, sweetie. I'll have food ready for you when you come home.
Sweetie. You see, my mom was the only one I never corrected on my name. I mean, she did give me my name, so I figured she could call me whatever she wants. Mom dropped me off at the arcade, gave me a kiss on the cheek, and left to head back to work. After I spent all my money, it was about 7 o'clock. Do you remember arcades in the good old days? I mean, I was dropped off in the middle of the day, and it was already nighttime by the time I was done. Back in the day when everything just cost a quarter in there. Anyway, I ended up walking back home as dusk started settling in. I hit the street that marked 3 blocks away from home, then I stopped. That alley was right ahead. After all that happened through the day, I'd completely forgotten about the night prior. The sidewalk was lit up an orange glow in the setting sun, but clearly there was no tail this time. I began to walk a bit more briskly, though. I didn't want to get caught up in anything like last night, much less have a chance to bump into Mike again. As the building reached the corner of the alley, I froze at the opening. I heard something. Right on the other side of the bricks. It wasn't like a rat rustling through some trash like the night before. It was too high-pitched. It also had rhythm. The feeling of curiosity washed away my fear. I leaned against the corner, peeked into the alley. There was a girl. Not too young. Maybe early to mid-teens? Shadow of the building was covering her features, but I could see she was sitting next to the dumpster, head up in the sky. Just a faint silhouette. That sound was apparently her humming a tune. Wasn't a song I'd heard, though. It was mesmerizing. Pretty, but also haunting. I didn't know who she was, and I knew everyone. After realizing that I was hiding and staring for over 30 seconds too long, I felt awkward. I was acting weird just because of a girl. So, behind the corner, I straightened up and began walking like nothing ever broke my stride. I passed the alley and kept going. I almost made it 2 blocks before I noticed that the girl's humming wasn't dying down. I looked behind me to see if she was following me, but no one was there. I walked to the last block, and it still wasn't going away. The sun was almost down all the way. Shades of red and purple began to go through the sky. Stars began to sprinkle into view, and I was sure my mom was into her shows now. She wouldn't have minded if I was back a little later, so I walked back. I began to talk to myself like I was a little stupid weirdo. What are you doing, Jim? No one wants to talk to you. You're a little freak, remember? I still kept walking. The melody never got louder, just constant. By the time I reached the alley, the sky finally went dark. Time flew when you were fighting against yourself, I guess. I find myself at the corner again. The humming was still in my head. The streetlight only partially glowed into the alley now. I didn't have my phone this time, so I didn't have a flashlight. I worked myself up, took a big breath, and started walking into the alley. It was as dark as the night before. Guided only where I thought she sat, I looked down into the shadow, and I called out. Hello? The humming finally stopped.
Hello?
The voice was so timid. Hi, I don't want to alarm you. I just I heard someone down here and wanted to see if you're okay. My name is Jim. Jim Finnel. What's your name? Suddenly piercing the dark. The bright blue orbs. It took me a second to make the connection, but they were eyes. I'd remember them anywhere. Glowing like beautiful sapphires on black canvas. And yet they looked sad and tired.
Hello, Jim Finnel.
Her voice soothed me. It melted away all the fear and anxiety I had. I didn't even feel awkward about talking to, well, a girl. The only problem was her tone. She spoke like she was really weak. So, are you okay? I saw you sitting here earlier, and it's dark now. Do you need help getting home?
I don't have a home. I'm sorry, I'm just very hungry.
Almost on cue, I could hear her stomach growl. I felt pity for her, which was a bit weird for me. Aside from my mom, I didn't really care about other people. Everyone's got problems, right? But maybe now, because she was telling me her problem instead of me hearing it from other people, it made me want to help. Especially if it's something as little as getting her some food. Well, we can't eat the trash, so come on, let's go get some food. Thinking she was still sitting on the ground, I held my hand lower to her. In the darkness, the eyes shifted to my outstretched hand. They looked brighter then, full of compassion, almost relief, like a new ray of hope or eagerness. My eyes were just beginning to adjust to the dark, but I was pretty sure I saw her hand reach for me.
Oh, thank you so much!
I gasped. It was only for a second, but her hand, it felt wet and slimy. It was like I was holding a bag of curdled milk, like after it's gone bad and there's a mixture of liquid and solid chunks. But before I could wrap my head around this sensation, it was a hand. A small, delicate, warm. It was a normal hand.
Is something wrong?
I was taken aback by her words. I wasn't sure what just happened, but all I knew is I was being rude just holding her hand like that. With our hands clasped, she used me for support and pulled herself up. I heard the sound of some sticky substance peeling itself apart from the ground. She was sitting next to the garbage. Maybe she sat in something? At full height, she was a tad bit shorter than me, and a lot skinnier. Not really hard to do, but realizing I hadn't answered her yet, I just shook my head. No, I'm fine. Are you okay? The two orbs of blue just went up and down, obviously nodding. She looked like she might have been even smiling with how they squinted a little. We made our way out of the alley and onto the sidewalk. Her footsteps made a sticking sound, though, like someone stepped in gum, but only for a moment. As we got into the light, I finally got a good look at her. She wore a long, black, tattered dress, and her frame was very slender, almost unhealthily so. She was barefoot, and her hair was long, going to her waist. Her face, well, she was pretty. Really pretty. Her eyes were just staring at me. Big, wide, blue eyes that looked like she'd found something she was searching forever for. The only blemish you could say was that she looked like she had a dark liquid all over her. Like somebody just dumped a bucket of tar or slime on her and she just hadn't cleaned it off yet. Who did this to you? She looked puzzled at first. Then she looked down and began to wipe off the goo.
Oh, this? It's nothing. It happens every now and then.
Her giggles made me flutter. Yet seeing her attempt to clean herself off made me think that she was hiding something. Whoever did this to her, having dealt with my own hazing earlier, it made me just angry. Why would someone do this to such a nice girl? She must have caught wind of my anxiety, though.
You don't have to worry, Finnel. I'm fine. This happens all the time. You seem to have your own troubles more than I, but you mentioned food. Are you sure you can feed me? I'd more than appreciate it.
You see, as much as you could tell from this story, I've had no experience with friends. Much less girls. My 17-year-old mind raced at the more part of her sentence. She didn't use any tone that would be considered suggestive. It was actual appreciation. After shunning several thoughts out of my mind, we began to walk. And it was a little after 9 p.m. A bunch of the stores had already closed up. It didn't affect my mood, though. I was brimming with happiness. I was actually talking to another person. Someone who, didn't care who I was. Like friends. We began to stroll through the town as we learned more about each other. But best of all, I learned her name.
Lacey.
That's a really nice name. She giggled.
Thanks. It's just a nickname, though. My real name is Lacis, but I guess you don't hear it around here. It's Latvian. People mispronounce it all the time, so Lacey is what I go by now.
I didn't know when it happened, but the black goo that was all over her earlier had pretty much vanished. I wondered what it was that would just evaporate on such a chilly night, but I chose not to make a fuss about it. I was just having too much fun. So, what's your last name? I hesitated a little. I knew everyone in town. It wasn't hard to know a few hundred people. She clearly was a new girl here, and for once I was making a genuine connection with somebody.
What do you need to know?
I blushed a little and looked at my feet as we walked. I guess it's a bit of a nervous quirk I have. I think no one should be forgotten about. Like, I want to make sure everyone I meet is remembered. Names are so uniquely different. They show the creativity of their parents, and now that's how we'll be remembered. I actually think Lacis is a great name. She stopped walking for a second. I turned to see her standing there, blue eyes just shining in the darkness. What, did I say it wrong? She just started shaking her head.
No, you said it perfectly. I'm very grateful, and I can tell your passion for the love of names. So, here it is. Azure. My name is Lacis Azure. And it's a pleasure to meet you, Jim Finnel.
I never thought of my hobby as passionate, but considering how meticulous I go to know names, I guess she wasn't that far off. The bigger thing was, as soon as her full name was revealed, I felt calm. It was subconscious, like I needed to know her, and knowing her full name, it kind of put my mind at ease. I guess she wasn't too far off about passionate.
Is there something that's been bothering you recently?
I tried not to look at her, but it was like she knew there was more going on in my life at that time. I didn't think I was showing any sign of worry, but if it wasn't for her, it would have just been one of the worst days I'd ever had. Somehow she made it all go away just by talking to me. I'd almost forgotten about it. Nothing in particular. I guess it was a lie, but I just met her. Why should I go about worrying her? I mean, I was the one trying to worry about her and getting her... Oh crap, we still haven't gotten you any food. Oh god, we've been talking for so long. She giggled a little and then smiled at me.
Well, maybe we can help each other out.
I blushed a little again. I needed to keep talking to her. Well, it looks like a lot of the stores are closed. Do you want me just to take you home? God, I was so stupid. She was just in an alleyway. What was I gonna do? Take her back to the trash? Do you want to come to my home? I'm sure my mom made something delicious. She always does. Then I realized the second stupid thing I did. I just invited a girl I hardly even knew to my home. I mean, that's only if you want to. I understand if you don't. I mean, your parents probably must be waiting for you. You shouldn't be out any longer. I mean, she just started laughing at me being all flustered.
That sounds fine. I can go with you. Lead the way, Jim.
She then held out her hand. So taking a girl home was not on my list of things I thought I was ever going to do. But we walked a bit more until we got to my house. It was almost 10 o'clock. When we got there, my mom was sitting on the couch watching another show.
Hey, honey, it's late. Did you get into...
She stopped talking when her eyes peeled away from the TV, and then to the two of us in the entryway. There was a long pause as she shifted her head from me to Lacis, back and forth.
Oh, sweetie, you should have called if you're going to have someone over.
I couldn't, Mom. Phone's gone, remember?
Oh, right, I forgot. Anyway, hello, dear. Who might you be? Are you new to town?
Lacis gave an honest-to-God curtsy. I didn't even think people still did that.
Hello, Mrs. Finnel. My name is Lacey. I just got into town not long ago.
Oh, what a pretty name for a pretty girl.
Mom, please. She noticed my embarrassment and turned off her show.
Oh, it's all right. I understand. Well, Jim, dinner's in the fridge, and there's more food if your friend would like a bite too.
She started to go to her room when she stopped. Mom was beaming at me.
She really is cute. Good job.
I know she was trying to be subtle, but definitely was too loud. Lacis stifled a giggle. I think I played it off a bit, but my face was hot for some reason. I walked into the kitchen, trying my best not to look embarrassed. When I pulled out the dinner Mom left me, I saw it was a big plate. Although I could have eaten it all, I presented it to Lacis. So, do you like chicken? She looked at the plate and wrinkled her nose.
Sorry, I have a special diet.
Crap, I'm sorry. Are you vegetarian? Vegan? I looked around our kitchen. Mom and I weren't really dieting types. I mean, we had the mindset of mainly eating whatever we wanted. I thought about offering her some of the veggies on the plate, but when I looked, she was gone. Lacis? I looked in the living room. Nothing. I began to look all around when I saw a familiar glow coming from my room. I hurried in there and I found her just sitting on my computer, browsing in the dark. In the quickest time, she had found my picture collection. Hey! I rushed over to the computer and wheeled the chair around. Lacis broke her gaze from the screen and stared at me as she wiped off her mouth. It took a second, but it looked like she was drooling.
That's quite a lot of pictures you have, Jim.
I couldn't help being flustered. My face burned with embarrassment, anger. And with everything that happened that day, now I meet a nice girl and she finds out my secret before we even get to know each other. You can't just come into my room and look through my computer. It's rude. You aren't even supposed to see this. People are allowed to have secrets. She looked at me with genuine surprise and sadness in her eyes.
I'm truly sorry. It's just... Look at what you've done. This looks like it could be everyone in the town. It's so well organized. A name, a face. I haven't seen anything like this. You must have wanted to know everyone here. Why would you want to hide this?
I was shocked. I mean, to be honest, I did put everyone in order alphabetically, but the pictures weren't the best or anything. Some were even blurry from being zoomed in too far away. What are you talking about?
All these people. You know so many. And you know them all?
Her lip quivered a little. I know of them, but no one really knows me. At least that was before. Bet the whole school knows me now, for better for worse.
I know you.
She stared at me with those blue eyes. With the monitor behind her and the darkness of the room, it was like they were glowing. And yet, there was no judgment like I got from the others at school. They were filled with compassion, maybe even understanding. No, you don't. You don't know me. I'm just a freak. I'm a guy who takes pictures of all the people in town. It's just so I can know their names.
Only so you don't forget them? Only so you can talk to them confidently even though they don't remember you? You wish to remember them. But I bet this isn't the case for everyone, is it? I would wager there are some people that you'd like to forget. People who don't care about you? The past always stays with us, but we can change our situations to have a better tomorrow.
That was an escalation. In one moment we were talking about names and stuff, but how did Lacis know exactly why I kept my list? I never told anyone why I took the pictures and why I knew their names. And there was that last comment. What do you mean we can change our situations?
Jim, I really need your help. I don't want you to think of me as someone who is a burden to you. We could be friends. I bet you didn't even know, but I'm in your collection too. Go on, I already added my name to the picture you have of me.
What? I didn't understand. We just met. There was no way I had forgotten this girl. I scanned through the pictures till I got to the A's. Azure, Lacis. It looked like a blank image, but when I clicked it, it was the picture from last night. The picture of the 2 blue dots. My mind raced through the events. Not just the good times from tonight, but all of it. The slimy tail I tripped over. The wet, sloshing, grotesque thing in my hand. And the blue eyes. Lacis, what are you? The look in her eyes held no malice or hurt, or even accusation. She just looked happy.
Jim, don't you know? I'm your friend. Or at least I'd like to be.
I couldn't wrap my head around things. I was swirling. Even in the fear of not knowing what was in my room, her words stung. I hadn't made a friend in forever, really. Anyone who had that title quickly lost it when they realized how different I was. But now, I was scared for my life. I didn't know who or what I was dealing with. The only thing I knew was whatever Lacis was, she just accepted my secret and wanted to be friends. I'm sorry, Lacis, I just don't know what's going on. She sighed a little, then looked at me with pleading eyes.
I need you, Jim. I haven't met someone like you for the longest time. If you can help me, I can help you in return.
What do I have to do?
Just give me a name.
I didn't get it. Sure, she spelled it out plainly, but I didn't get it. Did she want me to rename her? Did she want me to give her a nickname? I don't understand. You want me to call you something else?
No, Jim. I need you to give me the name of someone else. They have to know you, and in turn, you have to know them. I need you to willingly give me their name. Something so simple, and it helps the both of us.
She made it sound so easy. Even in the dark, those two blue eyes were almost shining now. And she was smiling. Why? How does it help the both of us? How do we both get something?
Well, you get quite a few things. First off, when you give me a name, I help you remember everyone. Every single person that you give me will never be forgotten. No more needing a computer to study up, am I right? Also, you'll be helping out your new friend. And I might add that your new friend is a pretty girl. Am I wrong?
Once again, that hot face feeling crept up. But beyond that, a friend. I'd only just met Lacis, but while she was pretty and seemed to be flirting, I don't know, I was never good at cues. There was something even more. The thought of not forgetting people? I wouldn't have to spend all my time reviewing my collection. I could have more time for other things. I could play games, watch TV with Mom, spend time with a friend. But something kept nagging at me. The idea of giving a name. This all seems a little too easy. How can you even make sure I won't forget people? It's like superpowers or magic. You can't just give that to someone.
Oh, I can. But let me tell you one last thing that I can help with. I can make anyone go away, disappear. No fuss, no being found out, no trails leading back to anyone. Anyone that has bothered you, gone.
For all the times that my face was getting hot, that last line made it go cold. It almost gave me whiplash. What do you mean? I couldn't. You couldn't. You couldn't mean...
Oh, I do. I mean it. Think more than a little. People in this world can be so cruel. I'm sure there's more than one person in it who has wronged you. Downright rotten people who just shouldn't be around.
I didn't even realize I started backing up. I was far enough that I was already against my wall. This girl? My friend? She was talking about this with a smile on her face. Then again, I just met her. I really didn't know anything about her. She cocked her head to the side. Why?
What do you mean, why? Isn't this a good thing? We help each other. I need you, Jim. I need you to give me names. I need someone who knows so many of them. And they all know the person who gives them to me.
And there's the problem. No one really even knows me.
But they do! You made a mark, didn't you, Jim? As I said, people are cruel. They don't want to think of their own flaws, so they speak about others. You know what that's like.
I relived the past couple days and nodded. One thing was bothering me, though. I don't know if I can do this, Lacis. All this talk about giving you names, it's a bit too much. You want me to help you, but I don't understand. How does giving you a name help? What do you actually do?
I already told you. I'm hungry.
How am I supposed to take that? How does even giving you a name give you food? Why do I have to be the one giving you the name?
I'm a bit different. I can eat only what I'm allowed to eat. I'm only allowed to eat something my friend has offered. Someone who I would do everything I can for. My friend! Because without them, I can't eat.
Sounds like a pet.
A pet doesn't have a choice. I don't have to be your friend, Jim. I want to be your friend. I want you to be my friend. And friends help each other. It's been so long since I've had a friend. Please, Jim, please be my friend. And I'll do anything in my power to make everything easy for you in the rest of your life. But that's all up to you. Do you want to be alone? Or can I help my friend out?
I can't remember how long I'd spent thinking. Minutes? Hours? I want to think I took a long time to answer, but I don't think it was long at all. How does this work?
Whenever you're ready, just give me a whisper.
I closed my eyes. It was too much. I just wanted to be nice to a girl, but before I could even respond, she was gone. Just like that, she was out of my room. I did hear the front door open and shut, and when I went to look out my window, I saw Lacis. She was almost in a skip, but then she stopped. Under the orange hue of the streetlight, she turned and looked at me with a beaming smile. And just like that, she was gone, away in the dark. Hands down, the strangest day of my life. It was late. With all that happened, I just wanted to go to bed. I laid down and turned. I looked at my computer screen. The picture of Lacis's blue eyes were still on it. What was the worst thing that could happen? Giving a name? How did it even work? What did she mean in terms of getting rid of them? She wasn't even around now. Part of me even wondered if it was all real. At the least, I guess I just met an eccentric girl, right? I wasn't too normal myself. I laid there thinking about how my day would have gone if the night prior just didn't happen. If Rudy wasn't around. Rudy. I opened my eyes and I knew where I was. I was about 6 blocks away down from the school, a little line of houses that sat down the street. The light poles were beaming, but they looked like a shade of blue. And then, I was sprinting. Each home flickered in my eyes, but that's when I saw it. A small ranch house. This was the Rudy house. I moved so fast I could hardly believe it. My head wasn't bouncing in the motion of running and legs. It was more like liquid flowing. I was the wind. A constant river just straight through. A small pulse ran through my head like a metronome. I could see through the house. 3 dull white objects came into view from behind the walls. By the looks of it, 2 were laying in bed. One was a smaller one in the kitchen that was curled up. Mike did have a dog, but that's not what I was here for. It was the beacon on the other side of the house. Among the dark blues and the dull whites, that was my perception. This was radiance. A sapphire that lit up my focus and burned like a full moon on a snowy night. My body hastened to this aura. As I got to the window, there he was. My gift lying over his covers on his bed. While the window was shut, I knew it didn't matter. I was like water seeping through underneath with my surprisingly flexible body until I was completely in his room. As I rose to my full height, I looked down on him. I didn't remember being so tall, but it didn't matter. I felt my arm reach for his leg. At least, I thought it was my arm. A long tentacle-like appendage of black mass was a better description, but no, it was mine. Shapeless at first, then shifting. The tentacle began to ripple and cracked into a solid mass like bone setting in. The black substance was gelatinous at first, firm, and then began to form into its chosen shape. At first it was long, then segmented into a spider leg, but then it just bubbled and bursted into stringing claws. It wasn't just that my arm went from sludge to a limb in a matter of seconds. So long has it been since I had the energy to make form. I got giddy. This was me. The freedom of me. My choice of an arm with too many joints that seemed like knives for fingers. But even with it being a hand, I was able to see through it. I could see through both my eyes and the hand. The two fingers began to walk up the bed gingerly. They strolled from the footboard till they found their prey. Glowing blue. That had to be his leg. Part of me thought the scythe-like fingers would cut him as soon as they touched the skin. But before they sliced, my claws changed and coiled around his ankle. Once they flexed and had purchased, the blue figure stirred. Another long piece of my body shot forth over his mouth. The sludge ran across his lips and covered it. I heard a muffled groan, but as he woke and saw me, it immediately turned into a scream. Oh, useless though. The mask that covered his face muted his pleas to a muffled breathing through his nose. I watched as the ichor ran across his mouth and spilled as it grew. Gently, I began to pick him up at the bottom of his jaw and cradled his head. I had to make sure not to choke him, but also that he couldn't get away. A giggle coursed through my body as he clawed at the sludge, but he couldn't get a grasp. I quickly entangled him with more appendages. They grew from different parts of my body in all different shapes. A pincered mandible holding his wrist, a furless paw with fingers at the end wrapped around his chest, the many legs of a millipede wrapping around his other leg. Another appendage just looked like a toothed leech just started enveloping his other arm. It was weird to know that this person could have beaten me up any day. And now, he was a puppet. A toy that I could move exactly how I wanted, pose like this, bend an arm so far that I could break it. No, not yet. His breathing was rapid. The blue that silhouetted him lit this whole room. I pulled him up close to my face. I was so hungry, not yet. My gift looked at me in terror. Absolute fear. He sobbed like a baby. Good. He hurt my friend. I mean, me. He hurt me? He hurt. And that was enough. Before I could parse out what I was, I spoke. But it was in two voices. It wasn't mine. But it was familiar. One was feminine, but also another in a deep, guttural tone.
Mike Rudy, you've been selected to be my gift. Be happy. Now you're finally gonna be useful. You'll be gone in my friend's life, and you will break my fast. Now, let's begin.
I heard the tear as I flexed my limbs. I thought I was going to be sick, but I was in ecstasy. The clawed hand that was around his ankle pulled. It was like a chicken leg being separated from its body. Not pretty, and not clean. I tore it from its owner, meat and bone exposed while it was hanging there. I could feel his foot twitching from the nerves that fired. Mike muffled a bellow that made me giggle while his crimson spilled out. More of my mask just covered the gaping hole of his fresh wound.
No, not yet.
I lifted the leg up to the ceiling as I opened my mouth. Sight and sensation were everywhere I was. I was able to see my jaw extend, rows and rows of sharp pointed teeth, some that were piercing through the mask, as the blood began to drip into my maw. Divine. So long has it been since I had this taste. It was all I could do to keep myself from engulfing him. I let the leg go as it dropped into my mouth. The flesh was still warm, every chew sending absolute joy into my body. I finished the piece of my meal, and as it hit my stomach, I shuddered from pure glee. It was too much. I needed to satiate my hunger now, and it had been way too long.
I should say sorry, but I won't.
Mike was barely conscious when it happened. All at once, my limbs began to pull in different directions as his did. Pieces of him were in my hands, claws, mandibles. It was enough to say I had a hold on things. I even laughed at my own bad joke. Pure joy took over. Without realizing, I began to feast. It was so easy. Every appendage I had grew teeth, tongues, and maws. The mass that had grown over his arm began to look like it was slurping on a spaghetti noodle. The scarlet that ran from his torn shoulder dripped off into the leech's lips. Its own tongue lapped around for more. The pincer and clawed hands that were holding the limbs just began chewing. Bones weren't a problem. The marrow was so fresh and succulent. It was a small amount of effort to put to task, no different than cracking open a crab leg. Even the millipede body grew a mantis-like head and began meticulously chewing, savoring each piece of its own bites. It felt like an age since I experienced this euphoria, and yet all the hunger was washing away with each piece that I partook in. The sounds were a cacophony of crunches, bites, and slurps. Ravenous and swiftly, all of Mike's parts got devoured. Organs, bones, sinew, tendons. I ate his head personally from the main jaw. His peanut shell of a skull splintered in my jaws, giving me the reward of his brain, tender like a thick pudding melting away. As I finished eating, I sighed, finally feeling full. The mass of limbs began to trace the room for any trace of blood. Any spot or puddle pulsed with an aura of blue. The feeling of watching over the pseudopods, cleaning every drop and knowing that I wasted nothing. As they receded back into my form, the room was spotless. Not one chunk, piece, or crumb was left in the blue room. My perception radiated inward as I said one last thing.
Thank you, Jim. I have a feeling this will be a great friendship.
That's when I woke up. It was morning. My head was racing. Everything was going through my mind. It was all so vivid. I remembered everything so clearly. Sights, sounds, smells, the tastes. You'd think I would have thrown up, but no. I felt fine. I was calm, collected, even pleased, but it had to have been a dream, right? I went ahead and got ready for the day when I realized I couldn't go back to school. I was still suspended, but that was okay. I got to do what I wanted. It was a few hours later when the doorbell rang. Mom was at work, so I went to go answer it. Standing there, smiling, was Lacis. She was absolutely stunning. Whatever flaw she had the night before was gone. Her frame wasn't bony, her cheeks weren't sunken in anymore. It was like she was a picture of perfect health.
Hello, Jim. Did you sleep well?
I hesitated on what to say. After a dream like that, I should have been traumatized. Someone I knew had just been eviscerated and eaten by me? But I was fine. I feel great.
Me too.
She seemed so happy as opposed to her passive behavior yesterday.
So, I know you got into trouble at school, but I guess that means we have more time together now. So let's get to know each other even more.
Lacis and I talked through the days I had off. It was nice. I forgot everything that bothered me and even was sad when I had to go back to school. She told me she'd be around and that she'd be watching over to make sure I was safe from now on, just as she promised. I went back to school after my suspension, but the whole time seemed to fly by. No more dirty looks, at least none that I really noticed. Just people not taking notice of me. It was more than I could have hoped for after the last day I was there. It felt like I was finally back to normal. It seemed like the school did have a bit of anxiety, though. There was some rumor going about Rudy running away. A few kids said he was abducted. The teachers didn't know what to think. Such an upstanding student just disappearing like that without telling anyone. But every time I passed Jose Martinez, he seemed to be sad. It was until he saw me. We would catch each other's eyes, and I'd feel his hatred. A look that screamed,
We lost a good kid, but we still have you.
The police stopped looking for Mike after that month, though. At least as thoroughly as they did before. They did come with an anonymous tip from a concerned individual. They came and questioned me, but to be perfectly honest, I didn't have to lie. Mom even told them Jose Martinez can shove his accusations to hell. She wasn't the best at swearing, but I was home the night that Mike disappeared. And that's what it was. He vanished without a trace. It didn't bother me that bad, though. I had a friend. It was about a month after that first night. Everything was perfectly fine. Lacis came over every night, sometimes even during the day after I got off school, then almost all day during the weekends. We'd hang out, she'd laugh at all my jokes, even the bad puns. Mom just adored her. But then she came to me one night.
Jim, I'm hungry.
I was more than a little shocked when she brought it up. Well, I could think of something to give you, but I mean, it's only been a month since Mike left. Don't you think people will get a little suspicious if someone else leaves?
I already told you. No one will find out. That's how it's gone in the past. I'll protect you, and you have nothing to worry about. We'll be friends to the very end.
How's it gone in the past? What, you've done this before?
I've had other friends, people who could help me out, but none that have been as helpful as you. They stopped caring about giving me gifts and...
She trailed off. Lacis, what happens if I can't give you a name?
You could give me your name.
While she did giggle after this, the room felt cold. She hadn't eaten in so long before she met me, but she had other friends. It just occurred to me what friends to the very end meant. Oh, yeah, oh, okay, I'll think of something tonight. She beamed at me and gave me a hug.
You're the best!
Those blue eyes just full of pure joy and gratitude. She left that night in another skip. I never knew where she lived or where she went when I wasn't around, but I figured I could help her in the smallest way, right? I couldn't let her down. I was all she had. She wasn't allowed to eat anything unless I gave it to her. So, after night came, I went to my room and laid down to go to sleep. But before I dozed off, Jose Martinez. That was about 8 years ago now. It's funny. I never really think about the past poorly anymore. I got through high school relatively easy. No more bullies, no more teachers or principals giving me crap, and there were no more bad looks from Susie Smith or Mary Tabor. Nikki Prescott wasn't the worst of them, but she got really mean when she was the last of their little group. And now I got an okay job. It pays the bills. I never really have a bad boss long enough for it to bother me, but most of all, I have the best friend ever. Lacis is my best friend. She is. And always will be till the end. She needs me because I'm good at helping her. I don't want to let her down. Not ever. She kept her promises too. I remember every name, every face I've ever given her. All of them. I miss Mom the most, though. The thing is, I know Lacis will always be around. A pet doesn't choose to stay around. She doesn't have to be my friend. She chose to be my friend. To the end. And I chose to be her friend too, because if not, it's just getting harder to make sure she's happy. She gets hungry more and more often. But that smiling face puts me at ease. And I know I'm safer after I help her out. Oh man, here I am just rambling my whole life story. But I mean, it's so easy to learn about one another now. I like to be meticulous when I meet people, though. So many people out there. And somehow you and I are here. You know, you haven't even gotten a chance to say anything yourself. So why don't you go ahead so we can get to know each other a little more? We can start simple. What's your name?